Welcome to Beyond the Reiki Gateway, a podcast reserved for the spiritually curious. Journey further with Reiki Masters Kathleen Johnson and Andrea Kennedy through in-depth conversations, many featuring inspiring and intriguing special guests to enrich your unique spiritual progression. It's season 3 here at Beyond the Reiki Gateway, and we are so excited to welcome you back. It's Andrea Kennedy, joined by my co-host, Kathleen Johnson, and we're just thrilled to be back together in the studio to bring you a brand new season. As we open up season 3, we wanted to take a look at why we started the podcast and what our mission with it is. And when we began, we wanted to offer our experience and our perspectives to help you as a spiritual seeker. And we recognize that many of you started your spiritual journey by learning Reiki. Reiki is also becoming more and more popular, with new students coming in to learn it every single day. Because Reiki is a common foundation in the spiritual community, and because we hear from you so often with your Reiki questions, we feel it's a great idea to look at Reiki through the lens of the basics. So we welcome you to this episode, and Kathleen, so glad to be back with you.
Thank you, Andrea. And I'm happy to be back. You'll notice from my voice that I'm still recovering from COVID. It finally caught up to me after 2.5 years of doing my best to escape it. But it caught up to me. Fortunately, I am feeling better now. I appreciate everyone's patience as I muddle through with my raspy voice. But
we're just happy that you're with us, Kathleen, and we'll take you any way we can get you. So we're just so happy to be back.
So am I, Andrea. It's great to be here and sitting upright for a change.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrea, for that great introduction. And yeah, I'm really happy that we're doing this episode today. I think it's a wonderful way to kick off season 3. And what you said about Reiki becoming more and more popular is so very true. Not only are more individuals seeking out Reiki training and learning about it, but I know in my own practice, more and more people are signing up for Reiki sessions who had never had them before. So the interest is there. People are awakening and people are coming around to the knowledge that there's so much more going on than we can ever imagine in 3D reality. So based on that, I think this topic is a great way to start our season. And we're going to focus on the basics of Reiki. And when we talk about that, one of the first things that come to mind is, what is Reiki? What is it? And there's so many answers to that question, but the one that I prefer is the simplest. It is spiritually guided life energy, period. That's the end. And from that, we can then talk about, based on that, what can Reiki do for us? And what does it do for us in the context of a Reiki session or in the context of being a part of our spiritual journey?
Yeah, I think that it's a great place to start. And there is so much noise out there, I think, in the world about Reiki. And it's my mission with you. Let's cut through all of that stuff. And so I love your very simple definition. It is universal life force energy or spiritually guided life force energy. That's it. It's an energy. And you'll notice in that definition, there was no mention of a person associated with Reiki. It is an energy. It is an energy. Now, another definition that people often hear is it's a healing system. Well, a system is developed by a person. And many people refer to Usui Sensei as the originator of Reiki. And while that's very true that about 100 years ago, he created a system having to do with Reiki, utilizing Reiki for self-healing and the healing of other people, what I want to sort of emphasize here on the podcast today is Reiki is not attributed to any one person. It simply is not. It is an energy. And before Usui Sensei developed his style of Reiki, there were other styles of Reiki being practiced in Japan. And I just want to set that forward, I guess, in our thinking, because I think a lot of people in the Reiki community use the word Reiki to mean Usui Reiki. And that's just simply one style of Reiki. But going back to the definition of Reiki itself, it is that spiritually guided life force energy. It's just energy. And we, as people, no matter if you're short, tall, fat, small, whatever background you have, no matter what your age is, we all can utilize this energy. And that is what I find so exciting about Reiki, because it isn't about dogma. It isn't about having to follow any set system of rules. Reiki is the energy, and how we decide to engage with that energy is completely up to us as individuals. There is no right and no wrong as long as we're remembering what Reiki is. I don't know. That's kind of my little soapbox, I guess. I didn't realize I was going to go there when we started, but it just kind of came out that way.
And that's why we do it this way, Andrea. It's a conversation, it goes where it needs to go, just like Reiki does, right? Yes, it's a spiritually guided life energy, but I think it's worth mentioning that Reiki is an intelligent energy as well. Because it is spiritually guided, it has an intelligence, a wisdom that far eclipses anything we can imagine as we live here on planet Earth. So I'm glad you said what you did. I thought that was a great way to go with it, because there is no dogma attached to Reiki, even though it has received a lot of unnecessary attachments over the years. This person, this way, that way. When it gets right down to it, none of that really fits. Reiki is spiritually guided life energy, which has an intelligence and wisdom that eclipses our own all the time. And as you said so eloquently, how we use Reiki in our own lives is up to the individual. And you can't do it wrong. It's one of the things I tell my students. I don't teach right now. I'm taking a break. And I know you tell that to your students as well. I think that's also important to remember. So when we continue along the path of, so what is Reiki? Okay, we talked about what it is. So what does Reiki do for us? Okay, people want to know. We know it's a great self-healing tool. For me, it's one of the best we have out there, if not the best, especially for those of us who have Reiki in their lives. And we know it's a wonderful healing modality for others. We also know it's wonderful as a path of spiritual development. It is all of those things and then some. So let's just talk about for a moment a healing modality for others. Now, Andrea, I'm sure you have encountered this, where you'll have a client or a student who comes and has a specific ailment or concern, and they want Reiki to focus in the session on that particular area. For example, oh, my left shoulder hurts and I don't know why. This happens to me, not as much as it used to, but it still happens from time to time. And one of the things I am always careful to tell clients, whether they're new or longstanding, is that remember, Reiki is going to give you what you need at this time, okay? Because it knows far better than you or me as the practitioner what the person needs. I don't know what that person needs. They may come in complaining about a sore shoulder. Maybe that shoulder is the source of their issues. Maybe it's not. I don't know. And that person doesn't know either. So I'm always careful to let people know that we need to release our expectations and accept and trust that Reiki is going to give you what you need at that time, whatever that may be. I think that's important to remember as we move forward.
And I couldn't agree more, Kathleen. And you're right. I hear that all the time. On the YouTube channel, I have a lot of requests for can you do a video Reiki for my tennis elbow, whatever it might be. And I'm sure you can imagine there is no end in sight for all of the different things that we might focus on in a session. And don't get me wrong, it's normal and natural to have a focus. I've never booked a Reiki client that didn't have an intention for the session. Of course they do. I mean, why would they want to come in for a Reiki session if they didn't feel that there was something that they wanted help with? So having an intention is normal, natural, and expected. There's nothing at all wrong with that. I think what we're saying is that Reiki knows what is best. And so I call it putting your order in. You can put your order in for whatever you want, abundance, fix my tennis elbow, my knee, help me attract my soulmate, whatever it is your intention. Wonderful. Focus on that. But the Reiki practitioner does not deliver on intention. The Reiki practitioner's responsibility is to simply offer the energy. We can have an intention that the client, so to speak, is helped in that way if it's in their highest good. But a responsible Reiki practitioner knows their role is to trust the energy and that guidance, that wisdom that the energy has. So while we might hold an intention for a certain outcome, as soon as we hold it, we let it go because it's all about what the Reiki senses is in their best interest. And I will say that it is difficult to let go of intention, but there's a lot we could just say on this one topic, Kathleen.
Absolutely. And yes, with Reiki, intention is everything. And of course, I always set an intention for the client prior to any session. And my intention is always the same. I intend that they receive deep healing and blessing because I know that's what Reiki is going to give them. And like you, I do encourage people to set an intention prior to their session. And I like the way you described it, putting in your order. That's kind of what it is. You put in your order for what you would like to happen. Now, you put it out there to the universe, spirit, what have you, whatever you want to call it, recognizes that this is what you're interested in. And if it is in your highest good, if it is in the interest of your deep healing and blessing, you will likely receive that. But there's no guarantees, and that's where releasing expectations comes into play. And something else you touched upon, I think, is super important, and that is, as a practitioner, we are merely facilitators. We are simply there to channel the energy to the recipient. I have to say, it kind of irritates me when people describe themselves as Reiki healers.
Yes, yes.
I just kind of grit my teeth and smile and go, I don't describe myself that way. I never have, because I am not doing the healing. I am not a
Yes.
magician. I am not a magical person. I am
Yes.
simply channeling the energy. Reiki does the healing.
Oh, absolutely, Kathleen. And it's funny because I have always shied away from that word myself. People will say, "Oh, you're a wonderful healer." Oh, no, 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 no. I'm just creating an opportunity for that person and the energy to get together, because the energy and the innate wisdom of who that person really is, oh my goodness, when the energy meets with them, wonderful things can happen well beyond what I could ever dream for them or what they might ever dream for themselves is possible. And so when we get out of the way and we invite our client, or whoever we're offering Reiki to, when we invite them to release the expectation, that's a beautiful thing. That's trusting in this power. It's creationary energy. When we do relax with the intention, that's when wonderful things happen. We just need to remember to get out of the way.
Boy, is that the truth. We are so often in our own way, sometimes without even realizing it. And yes, you're absolutely right. It's a creationary process. And when we allow ourselves to get out of the way, we become co creators in that process. And the changes, the healing, the insights, the information, the revelation sometimes, there's no limit to what can happen. But we need to release our expectations and get out of our way. And in the process, we find something so much more valuable than relief for a sore shoulder, using that
Yeah.
example again. And
Mhm.
when we allow ourselves to just experience it and realize we're in the presence of something so amazing, there's nothing like it. And I know you can absolutely relate to that.
Mhm. Exactly. And this brings us to the idea of the magic wand, right? I do hear from people, I'm sure you do too, Kathleen. It's as though some people feel like a Reiki practitioner has a precision instrument like a scalpel that can just go and remove this one little thing. It's like, don't look at anything else, just remove this one thing that I'm having trouble with. And I think that that's so fascinating to really look at, because whatever issue we might be able to define that is going on with ourselves, we are complex beings. It is not just a little bitty thing to remove. If we're having an issue that we're aware of, oh my goodness, there's so much underneath that. And Reiki is not a magic wand. I want to bring this into the conversation because, as you say often, we're having life on planet Earth. Issues are part of the experience. It is baked in that we have issues because this is
Exactly.
one way we learn and grow. I have said it for many years, and I'm going to say it right now, and that is the physical body is an instrument in our learning. Why? Because the physical body will take us to places that we would never choose to go if it was up to our minds, right?
So true.
It's that physical body that often, drags us, drags us to places that don't feel good, that we don't want to be in, perhaps disease and things like this. But that is such an opportunity for learning. We perhaps can all look back at an illness that we had or a diagnosis that we, had to deal with, something in our lives, and we can pinpoint or recognize a richness in learning that we did gain from going through that experience that the physical body had us embark on. And so we don't want to have these physical things like that sore shoulder. We don't want to have that. It's uncomfortable. Nobody wants that. However, there are reasons that these things come up in our lives. And if we look at these things as opportunities for ourselves to tune into ourselves, to ask deeper questions about what might be going on, to be present more in our experience and be open to what could I learn from this? What is important here? Then you can see the depths of a spiritual process unfolding with that. And if we just had a magic wand and made the pain go away, lickety split, where's the lesson in that? Where's the growth? And what's the point of life then if we can just snap our fingers or, open our Reiki hands for 5 minutes and poof, it's gone.
Exactly. That's really very well said. And I can use my current experience as an example. This has not been fun. I don't like feeling physically unwell. I don't like being unable to physically do everything I want to do. But I have to say, the past week and a half, when I was pretty much doing nothing, yeah, pretty much, because the physical body was like, yeah, it's not happening, lady. Just relax. I had more insights coming into me during that time period than I ever would have had just going about my daily life with all my busyness. And I am aware that it's in those moments of solitude and quiet that that happens, because so often we don't slow down enough to listen to that voice, that still
Mhm.
small voice, as is said. And when we finally have that opportunity, it becomes louder and more obvious. So you're absolutely right about the lessons. I know there was a huge lesson, and there still is a huge lesson for me in experiencing this virus. I think it was because I needed to know some truths about myself and about the way I interact in the world. And they've been coming in, and I've been paying attention. So for me, this was a huge wake up, like, oh, okay, I understand why this is happening. Do I like it? Oh, no, I don't like
Right.
it. But at the same time, I recognize that there is far more to this than just a couple weeks of feeling terrible. And I think as we go along our spiritual paths, that's one of the things that is so valuable to me, that we are able to look at what happens in our physical lives from a higher perspective. We have that, what I consider a bird's eye view, instead of looking at this as just a huge inconvenience. Oh, I feel terrible. This is the worst. All the stuff I've missed, blah, blah, blah. You're able to take some steps back and say, yeah, okay, I know this is happening for reasons I don't quite understand. Let me take another look at this. And
Mhm.
that is one of the gifts of being on a spiritual journey. And for me, specifically, I'm talking about the Reiki journey, because that is a big, big part of my spiritual path. It allows me to view life on planet Earth, as I say a lot, from a different perspective, from a soul perspective. And that to me is a valuable, valuable tool as I muddle my way through this incarnation.
One of the things that came up while you were talking is, you know what? I am sure that there are people out there that probably don't look at things the way we do, and probably just lay in bed and are upset that they're in bed and they're not still on that hamster wheel of life, and they're not doing any sort of evaluation or looking deeper. And that's kind of sad to me. But I'll bet you, those listening to us today, I'll bet you they can totally relate to what you just shared. And I myself had COVID earlier this year, and that was me too, Kathleen. When we go through things like this, an ailment or a sickness, it is very derailing. It is an interrupter to our normal routine, our normal thinking. It affects us on all levels: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Reiki does that too. And so, isn't it a wonder that all people are susceptible to illness? It's life on planet Earth. And all people have access to Reiki. So, as we might be affected on all levels, we have a tool, just being a human on earth, that we can use to help ourselves. It's as though we have been gifted the ability to walk hand in hand with this energy throughout this life as a human. And that's why, to take a couple steps back to the beginning of the show, that's why I feel like it's so important to underscore what Reiki is and what it isn't and cut through all the noise out there. Because if people have fear about what Reiki is, it might keep them away. And there's really nothing to fear. And I can't underscore that enough. Reiki is this energy. It is creationary energy. It is, I'm going to even go out there a little bit. I'm going to say it's loving energy. And why would I say that? Because it doesn't ever do harm. The energy doesn't do harm. People can do harm. And I'm even going to go out there a little bit more and say practitioners who do call themselves Reiki practitioners, they're not above that. They're just people. So while the energy doesn't do any harm, people can, and they may not mean to. That might not be their intention. And also people who teach Reiki. What I continually find is I come across people in the community, whether it be from YouTube or students in my classes or mentoring clients. They take a Reiki class and they come away with a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and so many more questions than when they began to learn Reiki because of that honest and deep pull, that attraction, that guidance to learn Reiki. And then they come into it and it's beautiful. And then because some of this information is still perpetuating in the community, they begin to question if Reiki is good, if they should be doing Reiki, if they should be learning Reiki. So many different things come from this. And again, the energy, that is what Reiki is, the energy. And I don't know if you want to share any of the ideas or misconceptions that you've come across, Kathleen, in the community that we might want to address, but now might be a good time to approach some of these things head on.
It's funny. I feel that you were almost inside my head when you were talking, because that's the exact track of thought that I was going when you started talking about the misinformation and the disinformation that unfortunately is out there about Reiki. One of the things that I have noticed, I would say, especially in recent years, is there is more judgment in the Reiki community than there ever needs to be. There really is no room for judgment when we're talking about Reiki, when we talk about it as a pure, spiritually guided energy. However, we do tend to complicate things as humans. We really do. So, as most people who are listening to this episode probably know, there's many, many different styles of Reiki, many systems, all of which are valid, all of which have value, and all of which help the person who is drawn to use them for themselves or for others. I want to say that right off the top. I have zero problem with any of them as long as they are delivered with intention and that thought that this is a spiritually guided energy and I am here as a facilitator of that energy, period. However, what I've noticed, and I've written an article about this, and I think you also have addressed this in a writing that you had, there seems to be almost a competition. What style of Reiki is the best Reiki? Which one is the worst? And which has more value? And so on and so forth.
What about purity? Which one's more pure?
Oh, please. 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 Okay. Yeah. We talked offline about this a little. And as I said to you, I just can't.
Yeah.
I just can't sometimes. Again, I'm going to go right back to what we said at the beginning. Reiki is a spiritually guided life energy. That is it.
Yes.
And fortunately, it adapts itself to each of us to give us exactly what we need. Yes. And how we need to access it in order to make it optimal for ourselves and for others. So that, of course, would include so many different types of Reiki. Think of the types of and numbers of people that are available to use Reiki. Of course, Reiki is going to be different for everyone. It stands to reason. It does not mean that one is better or one is worse. And what I've noticed is that whenever a new system of Reiki seems to arrive, it really gets a lot of scrutiny and a lot of criticism, like, what's that all about? There's so much judgment. And I'm in the background thinking, hurrah, I'm glad we have another system of Reiki, because in today's world, as we are moving through this collective, whatever it is, evolution, de-evolution, not really sure, but we need all the help we can get.
Yes.
So just relax, everyone. any of you who have encountered this, I'm here to tell you, and I know Andrea is going to echo this, that there is no best system of Reiki. The only best system of Reiki is the one that works best for you and the one to which you are drawn to practice, period.
Yes, that's so absolutely spot on, Kathleen. And you had mentioned your article, and I remember, oh, it was years ago, I wrote a blog post, and I think I titled it something like, That Doesn't Feel Like Reiki to Me. It was on this subject because of exactly what you described, judgment within the Reiki community. That doesn't feel very spiritual to me, to be asserting that the Reiki that you practice is better than other people's. I don't know. That doesn't seem very advanced or enlightened to me. And the essence of Reiki, being this energy, it is open to every person. Every person has different ideas and different variables that will cause them to be drawn to different styles, as you say. And it's funny, we are just so in each other's heads because what you said just a second ago about the best Reiki is the Reiki that you're drawn to. Absolutely. Because a person cannot make a connection to Reiki if it doesn't appeal to them. And what a shame that would be if it had to be a certain lineage or a certain style in order to be good Reiki. And so people said, well, I don't know, that doesn't really appeal to me. And then they never learned Reiki or never gave it a chance. And I've used this analogy before, but it's like ice cream. Not everybody wants or gets excited about vanilla ice cream, but add some sprinkles, add some chocolate chips and fudge. Oh man, you got a lot more people attracted to the ice cream bar over there, to make their sundae just the way they want it. And it's wonderful. It's sweet and delicious, and it resonates with each person the way they want it. The core ingredients are the same, and it is an adaptable energy, and we know this. And over time, what I think I've noticed is this parallel between what we see in a Reiki session and what we see on the world stage. And how I'll describe this is in a Reiki session, the practitioner and client are together in the room. And let's just say that the recipient, or I just use that word client all the time, but the client is on the Reiki table. The practitioner is the facilitator. That's a great word that you used earlier, Kathleen. And we're just offering that Reiki. And the practitioner is offering that energy for the highest good of the client. And something remarkable happens in a session. The Reiki energy adapts and offers whatever is needed for that client at that moment in time. The energy adapts to meet the needs of the client. And if that client came back in a week, guess what? The energy would behave differently because that client is in a different place the following week, the following day, whatever it is. But the point I'm trying to make here is the energy adapts to the needs in that moment. And now I would like us to broaden our gaze and look at the world. Collective consciousness, or humanity, let's say, especially in the past few years, we've had a lot of shared experience. And as a result, we've had a lot of shared desires. Perhaps it's for peace. Perhaps it's for unity. Perhaps it's for more truth. Whatever that is. But I think that we could all sort of agree that we've had a more resonant voice as humans, a coming together in response to these global events. I spoke about how the physical body takes us on journeys we don't really want to go on. Well, guess what? Globally, we're all kind of going through some things too that we would never have wanted to. But again, as individuals have certain desires or needs or wants, intention, like we talk about, when you multiply that around the world and gather all those individuals wanting so much of the same intention, holding those intentions Flashback to the client on the Reiki table. The energy meets the client where they are. The energy that we're seeing globally, this Reiki energy, is meeting humanity for what we need today, not what we needed 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago. The energy is current. The energy is life force energy. Life is happening in this moment. And so, as a global community, I'm seeing that the Reiki energy is meeting us collectively as a world in this unified intention, or intentions, as we say. It is adapting to help us where we are today. Isn't that amazing? And also, knowing Reiki is this guided life force energy, how could it be any different? You know,
Exactly.
it makes total sense to me,
Of course it
when I
does.
look at it
Yes.
this way. Yes.
Well, what you're doing is you're looking at it from the soul perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not
Yeah.
looking at it as a person living in 3D reality. You're looking at it from the soul perspective, as I talked about earlier. And that makes all the difference. And as people continue to awaken, and as you said, people are wanting the same things, peace, unity, love, all those things that make life worth living on planet Earth. And the more people that awaken to that desire and start to realize that, yes, at the end of the day, this is what we all want, the stronger that energy gets, and the more Reiki can come in and help us and adapt to the ever changing needs. It is not the same world as it was yesterday, nor will it be the same tomorrow, because it is always, always changing. And fortunately, we have that spiritually guided energy that is completely capable of managing it all, as long as we are open to it and aware that, yes, we can effect change just by remaining open, aware, and curious. So, this is such an important lesson. It really is, especially for today's world. I have to believe, and I do believe, that things are going to get better. I truly do.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that I experience in my quiet moments, everything I've been channeling, everything that I'm led to read and to experience tells me that that's what's going to happen. Sometimes it's hard to think that when you see
Mm-hmm.
what's happening, but I know we have incredibly powerful forces working to help us in whatever way we need. And that gives me deep, deep hope.
Me too, Kathleen. Me too. It's very exciting times that we're in, ups and downs and ins and outs. But you're right. We have a lot to help us. And we sort of started that topic about the magic wand of Reiki, right? One way I look at Reiki is a companion in my life, not a be all, do all, fix all sort of thing, but a companion that is with me all the time and that helps me through different things. And I invite that help. I wanted to share a concern that I've seen over and over in correspondence with people that I hear from. And Kathleen, I'm sure you have heard this as well, but it seems that I've heard this several times lately. And so I'm taking that as guidance to bring it up. And that is, I was contacted by someone who was afraid to continue from Reiki 1 level to learn Reiki 2. And this person said in their email that they had heard from other masters, Reiki masters, this implies, but they had heard from other masters that if they took Reiki level 2 too soon after Reiki level 1, that it could cause illness or perhaps death of someone close to them. And I have to tell you, I read that and I was, I don't know what the right word I want to use is. I was mad. I
Yeah.
was mad. I was disappointed. I was frustrated. And I just wanted to, scream. And the reason for that is how irresponsible I view that. As someone who would call themselves a master is instilling fear in someone who is feeling pulled to go further in their relationship with Reiki, to instill a fear? What on earth do those outcomes even have to do with Reiki? And I felt outraged. I felt, how the heck does somebody justify saying that to another person? And in my back and forth with this person, I learned that they actually learned Reiki 1 almost a year ago. And I thought, oh my gosh, how long are you supposed to wait between Reiki 1 and Reiki 2, according to those so called masters? But this person said that after they learned Reiki 1, their mother in law passed away about a month later. And I was really sitting in disbelief at the idea that this person was so concerned and worried that by them learning Reiki, maybe offering it to this mother in law, but that was not mentioned, that it somehow caused the death of this beloved person in their life. I want to take the opportunity right now with you, Kathleen, and get your feedback on this as well. Reiki does not harm, period. This is not the first correspondence that I've had like this, as I mentioned. And so, somewhere out there, people are perpetuating fears surrounding Reiki training, or that if we offer Reiki to a person under whatever conditions, it's going to harm them. This is not true. It does not harm. Have you received correspondence, messages to this topic, Kathleen?
Oh, yes. I have over the years, people very worried about if they don't take it within a certain amount of time or if they take it too soon,
Mm-hmm.
as you were describing, or even if they decided to pursue Reiki training,
Mm-hmm.
these terrible, terrible things might befall them. Like you, I just feel outraged and
Mm-hmm.
almost impotent. That feeling of, I'm so upset about this and I don't know what to do with it type of feeling,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's irresponsible. And as you were talking, I was making a couple of notes, and it comes down to, and this is how I see it, these people who are injecting fear into Reiki are not only being irresponsible, but that's dangerous. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, it feels like it comes down to control. It's
Mm.
about control and power over the student, as if the individual perpetuating this fear is saying, yes, but if you stay with me, everything will be okay, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. That is so dangerous. And what people sometimes fail to remember is that when you inject fear into something like Reiki, that constricts the energy. When the human emotion of fear shows up and we get tense and we get worried and we are frightened, what does that do? Feel how that is in your body. You tense up, you constrict everything. And the energy of Reiki, if you're channeling it, gets constricted too. It's unable to flow freely because we're being constricted. So I see it as power, as control, as dangerous and
Mm-hmm.
irresponsible. So these masters, and I use that term very loosely, are able to control these students by creating this fear around Reiki. As you said earlier, there is no fear in Reiki. It's completely out of Reiki's wheelhouse. It is spiritually guided life energy. There is zero fear. The only fear that happens is the fear we assign to it as humans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've heard these stories too. One of the ones I heard very early on in my Reiki journey and that I still kind of shake my head about is don't ever try to treat a broken bone with Reiki because you'll
Mm-hmm.
make it worse.
Right.
And at the time, I kind of scratched my head and thought, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But if anybody comes to me with a broken bone, I probably send them to the ER anyway. So,
Yeah.
you don't be here for a Reiki session. You should probably go to the ER. But there is so much misinformation and disinformation, which is
Mm-hmm.
even worse
Yep.
because they are actively promoting falsehoods and dangerous information about Reiki.
Yeah.
And it does all of us a disservice.
It does. And you're so right. The other one, and I have to tell you, I just heard this in the last week. I had someone write to me and ask for my opinion on offering Reiki to someone with a cancerous tumor. The Reiki is going to make the tumor grow larger. I heard that many years ago when I first started with Reiki. And I thought, whoa. And in a weird way, I actually thought that can kind of make sense. But then I snapped out of that and went, oh, wait, I remember what Reiki is. It doesn't cause harm. So I think that is a great compass for us to remember what Reiki is and always go back to what Reiki is. So if a person has a pacemaker, it's okay. That's another common one, right?
Yes, it is.
And so, just for the record, if somebody has a cancerous tumor, Reiki them. There are healthcare facilities all around the world that offer Reiki to cancer patients. And
Mm-hmm.
believe me, if it made cancer worse, there's no way that Reiki would be anywhere near those hospitals. But if we remember what Reiki is, life force energy with wisdom that helps us for our highest good. I mean, really, just remember that. And everything else that people might hear from other humans about Reiki, and us included, right, Kathleen?
That's right.
Anything that they hear about Reiki, please remember what Reiki is. And when you do that, feel within your body, feel within your deepest knowing, is what you are hearing in resonance with the truth, capital T, of what Reiki is. And use that feeling, use that inner knowing to help you discern, because there are so many different ideas out there and misleading ideas about Reiki. I think I speak for both of us, Kathleen, that any action, any broadcast out there by any people or organizations or associations that would hinder, that would keep, that would promote a person to have fear or trepidation about Reiki, we want to dispel that. And who knows best? The individual. Trust yourself. Remember what Reiki is and be guided by that, not what anyone claims out there, not what anyone claims. Anyone can call themselves a Reiki master. Anyone can call themselves a Reiki teacher. Use your inner wisdom to discern and follow that toward higher learning, exploring, and knowing.
Exactly. Beautifully said. And anytime you hear something about Reiki that creates fear, then I think it's time to maybe move in the other direction. And as you said, you know, don't just listen to us, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
no one anointed us the be all and say
Mm-hmm.
all about Reiki. What you will not hear from us, though, is anything that induces fear about Reiki or the practice of Reiki. That you will never hear us say that
Mm-hmm.
because that is something about which Andrea and I feel very strongly. Reiki can never do harm. It is only ever used for the highest good of the recipient. And to sum up, we've already talked about what it is, but one thing we haven't said, and this is a deep truth. Reiki is love.
Mhm.
It is love in its purest form. So how can that ever do any harm? If something makes you afraid of Reiki, then you need to ask yourself why.
Yes. And I want to underscore one other thing. These ideas and misconceptions, disinformation, they are coming from individuals and organizations and whatever out there. My point is that Reiki is love. But humans get in the mix, and humans have their own motivations. And some are more lovingly guided than others. And that is what we would say to look at, to feel about. Because while Reiki is, as we've described it, in the hands of other people, it can be perpetuated, can be utilized, can be, I'm going to use this word with intention, wielded in certain ways that I would say are not in alignment with the vibration of Reiki. And this is where discernment comes in.
Exactly.
It's a big deal to me to have a Reiki session as a client, to lay on the table and receive. That is a big deal. I have very high regard for a session, whether I'm a practitioner or a receiver. It's not nothing. I know of practitioners and I know of clients out there, people open to Reiki, that it seems very willy nilly to, just as Reiki class seems very willy nilly. And I would just invite everyone interested in Reiki training and also interested in teaching, really do your homework. Take your time. There's no rush. Find the right teacher, find the right practitioner for you, and be the kind of Reiki teacher that remembers what Reiki is, that honors it at its very essence. And you will be doing a service, not just to those you engage with, but it may sound hokey, but to the world, because the energy is a collective energy. And when we vibrate at a high level, we are informing everything else around us and the collective consciousness. This time that we're in right now, this is our time. We have to be responsible. Enough with the fakery, enough with the misleading. Let's hold ourselves to a higher standard and stop the judgment, stop the fear, stop telling people whatever it might be. If we need to have a certain outcome, manipulate them in some way, have control or power, like you were talking about, Kathleen. Enough already. Those days are over. Let's come together. Let's be a unified Reiki community with a unified message to help this planet in these times and to invite more people with open arms into Reiki for themselves, for each other, for all of us.
Yes. Bravo. It's so true. We don't want to have power over anyone. However, when we use Reiki wisely, the way it was intended, we are empowering ourselves, those with whom we work, and as you said, the collective energy. We are being Reiki, and it's something that's needed, and it's time to discard the judgment, the fear, the control, and the power over others. The time has come for us to be Reiki, recognize what it is, and more importantly, recognize what it is not. It is not an instrument of fear to be wielded under any circumstances.
And there's no place in our community for judgment, belittling, accusations. We need to keep our eye on what's important.
Absolutely agreed. All right, Andrea, we've had our soapbox moments, and I'm feeling kind of, yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, I know. I didn't know we were gonna do all that, but
I didn't
apparently
either.
apparently we've had some thoughts during our, break.
I have some thoughts, yes.
Yeah. As we come into season 3, here we go. I wanna also mention really quickly too, we've talked about Reiki classes and things like that, and also we brought up Reiki styles, right? And there are so many people coming into Reiki newly. I hope we didn't scare anybody off, but I think we did okay. But if you want more information about classes, how to choose the right Reiki class for you, because really the only right Reiki class is the one that's right for you. But we had a whole episode about that, and it was from, gosh, back in season 1, episode number 17. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes, but it was called Choosing the Right Reiki Class. You might find some good information for yourself in there. And also, if you're thinking about teaching Reiki, that would be a really good episode to listen to. Because even as a Reiki master teacher, we never stop learning. And if you are a dedicated teacher, you're always wanting to improve. We're not saying we're the best teachers, but we might have some ideas or perspective you hadn't considered before. So we just put that out there. And then one other episode that we did was also back in season 1. This one I think might be better to listen to after the one I just mentioned, but it's called Why So Many Types of Reiki, and it was episode 14 in season number 1. And of course, you can always find all the episodes of the podcast on our website, beyondthereikigateway.com, but we'll have the links down below in the show notes.
Sounds great. Those are good episodes to listen to or review. If you've already heard them, it may not be a bad idea to listen again, because sometimes the insights are there that are yet to be revealed. So we hope you will give them both a listen.
Right. And also, we all know sometimes we're not ready to hear certain things, or it just doesn't land or resonate with us at a certain time. But then when we listen back, it's new because we're different. We're different than
Right.
we were. Yeah.
Exactly.
We also want to invite everybody listening, reach out. We're on Facebook, through our website. You can send us an email. Let us know your thoughts, your suggestions for future episodes. We want to hear from you. We're building this community for all of us.
And to help us out, please subscribe if you haven't already, and leave us a great review if you feel so guided. It definitely helps to get our message out to more people, and we really appreciate it.
We sure do. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and hopefully next time my voice will be back on track. Thank you for bearing with me.
And before our final sign-off, Kathleen and I want to offer our heartfelt gratitude to all of you who listen regularly, share the podcast with friends and family, have donated to the show to help support our all-volunteer effort, and have contributed to the community through leaving positive reviews or reaching out with words of encouragement or even ideas for future episodes. Your involvement in our community means the world to us, and we thank you.